All right, welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries. I'm Dave Lizabram, getting over a cold, and I'm here with my co-host,
Andrew Keats.
who sounds great. Maybe you should do the talking.
Buddy, give me a minute. I'm sure I'll screw it up somehow.
Okay. We're brought to you by Treble Media, treblezine.com. Find people over there. People should read what they put out and support it because it's independent music journalism, which is a dying art form, sadly. But they're keeping it alive. So shout out to Treble. And we're joined by a super special guest, the one and only Juliana Hatfield. Juliana, say hi.
Hi, this is Juliana. Hi, I'm glad to be here.
I'm very excited about this. Juliana, I was trying to remember when I first was getting into what you do, and I remember, I knew of the Lemonheads and stuff like that. I was into that, and then I remember hearing, I'm from San Diego, and I'm sure you're familiar with 91X, our pioneering alt rock station, and I remember hearing them, like, driving maybe home from school, I guess, and hearing them premiere My Sister and thinking that was very cool. So now it shocks me to know that was like 30 years ago. But
how do you think I feel?
I know. So I'm, I guess, a bit of an OG, but anyway, it is it's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
We when we're feeling generous, we invite our guests to select a film that they want to discuss. You have chosen X, the Unheard Music from 1986, directed by W.T. Morgan, about the band X. And but before we get into that, we can also discuss what you've been up to. We had a chance to check out the so you've got the project going on where you sing, you do like whole album covers of artists, and the most recent one is ELO. Andy, you have something to say about ELO, don't you?
I saw them on Sunday. I saw Jeff Lynne and ELO on Sunday.
You mean a concert?
In a live concert setting, yes. I saw them live.
Where?
Did they cover Juliana Hatfield Sings ELO?
Yeah, they did. They played Juliana Hatfield's telephone line.
Whoa. That's too something to contemplate. Where did you see them play?
It was so Joe Walsh does, for I guess these like last 7 years or so, does a Vets Aid annual concert, which is one night in one city each year. This year it happened to be here in San Diego. But he put together a really great lineup. It was Lucius, Flaming Lips, War on Drugs, ELO, and then Joe Walsh with Stephen Stills.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, it was a fantastic night of music. And man, let me tell you, that was the first time I was lucky enough to see ELO, and not a surprise really, but boy, just beginning to end, every person in the audience knows every word and singing along. Just everyone knows, knows the music in their bones and is acting like it. It was a fantastic show.
So what are a couple songs they played? Like, did they do a whole set or what?
Yeah, they played. I would guess I would call it maybe 11 minutes or so. Or excuse me, 11 songs, 50 minutes.
A tight 11-minute ELO.
Tight 11 minutes.
ELO's now a hardcore band, so they're in and out.
It was great. I mean, they opened with Evil Woman, and it was just like crowd just loses it. They played Living Thing. They played All Over the World, Telephone Line.
Wow.
Don't Bring Me Down, Mr. Blue Sky. It was
I'm jealous.
Yes.
I've never seen them or him play live ever.
I mean, there's like 15 people on stage. It seems like it was just so much sound. It was great.
Did they have strings and everything going?
Strings and everything. Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So cool. I hope that means he's gonna go on the road again.
Yeah, that's what I would love. I mean, I think maybe it was sort of a one-time thing for this Joe Walsh thing.
Right.
But so tell me, you've been going through doing some tribute albums. When you settled on ELO, what was your thought process on that?
The ELO project was really something that there wasn't really a thought process. It was really decided on a whim. I had been thinking a lot about doing REM an
Mm.
album of REM songs, and I was sort of starting to work toward that. And by that I mean I was starting to listen to all the REM, like the second half of their discography, which I really have not heard really this probably the second half of their discography because there's so much REM. Then I kind of stopped listening at some point for no reason other than I don't know. I had no reason. But so
Life got in the
I was
way. Yeah.
yeah, and I started listening, doing my research, which was going to be listening to everything that I had never heard, and like it became such a daunting idea. And I decided, oh, I'm gonna have to do volume one, Juliana Hatfield Sings ELO volume one, because I know the first half of their discography, and was starting to choose songs, and then so I could tell people, and there will be a forthcoming volume two, which may or may not will have been a lie because that maybe I never would have gotten to volume two, but I think I could have done a really good volume one of the first, songs from the first half of their discography. But anyway, the whole thing, making a long story even longer, the REM idea became a little bit too overwhelming for me, and then right at that moment, um, the idea of ELO kind of popped into my head,
Mm. Mm.
which was its own huge challenge once I started doing it. But um, there was I felt like there was a little bit narrower of a scope in terms of the actual material that I would be contemplating with ELO.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I hope to get back to the REM idea, but now that Mickey Dolenz has done that EP, which is so great, maybe there's no point in my doing REM anymore. I don't know. I might have missed my chance.
Well,
Yeah,
the ELO stuff's great, and it's really interesting because just the first thing that jumped out to me was the sort of opportunity to do your own arrangements because they really do come out sounding like yours.
Yeah. Well, I think. Sorry, did you want to say
Yeah,
more?
no, that's good. Yeah.
Um. Yeah. Well, I just feel like there's no way to try to just do what they did because they did it so
Mhm.
well, and I didn't really even want to try to get near that stuff. So I just did my own thing. I try to make the songs kind of feel natural in my hands, and then I just think of ideas just come to me in ways to fill in the spaces in ways that feel natural to me.
Yeah, I really connected back when with the Prince. You should do that too. I'm just gonna give you suggestions. The Police one, was that the first one or was Olivia
No,
Newton?
Olivia Newton-John was the first one.
Right. Okay. The Police one though, I really connected with because I was like, well, how's this gonna work? Because you know, I like the Police, but I think of them like just having so much noodly stuff happening, with the drum
Yeah,
patterns and everything. And you took such a different direction and it totally works. And it just really shines a light on the melodies which are so strong. And it's like,
yeah,
for whatever reason, that band worked by having these really solid pop melodies and then just like doing all this prog jazzy stuff with it and the
yeah.
production and everything. And that, that totally worked for them in the time. But I mean, I would have found the idea of covering the Police's songs intimidating because I just like a little bit of a guitar player, and I would be like, well, I can't play like Andy, and who could play like you know what I mean? But just to
I
like
know.
to conceptualize it a different way really kind of opened my eyes to it. It was really just a cool approach.
Well, thanks. I think that it's only now looking back after having made that album that I realized, like, wow, like, what did I had a lot of nerve to think that I could, you know, tackle the Police because Stuart Copeland is so beloved, and Andy Summers also, and their styles are unique. And, like, so there's, the drumming is such a huge part of what makes the Police so great. And I think I was just kind of like focusing on the Sting part. Like I know those melodies so well, like the back of my hand, and it's like I knew that I could do that part, the singing, and then I would deal with the drums and the guitar, and I just try to like simplify. I simplified, I think. That was my
Mhm.
approach.
Now, did you? have you heard anything from the Police Inc. or ELO Inc. or Olivia when she was with us?
Olivia, yes, she was. I mean, not directly, but she was very gracious about she talked about it on her website and her Twitter feed. Had very nice things to say about it, and that was great. That was wonderful. And but so no. Oh, and kind of a funny story. Um, well, not funny. Just it was interesting to me. My friend Josh Freeze, who is now the Foo Fighters drummer. He played on my second album a little bit on my second album, Only Everything. On my second album on Atlantic. Josh Freeze. He was playing drums in Sting's band for a number of years before he joined the Foo Fighters. And so when my Police album was about to come out, Josh told me that he was backstage before a gig with Sting one night, and Sting was looking at his phone, and Sting asked Josh something like, "Oh, do you know who Juliana Hatfield is? She's done an album of Police covers." And Josh was like, "Oh yeah, I know Juliana. She's cool." So that for me, that was a very exciting story. That Sting actually said my name, and which would have really excited me when I was a teenager, knowing that Sting said my name out loud.
That's awesome. Okay,
Yeah, and I'm still a fan. I'm still a dorky fan. Like I was the hugest Police fan back then. When I was in high school, I was the big number one fan of the Police. I had all the bootlegs on cassette, all the live shows, all of them.
Nothing from Jeff Lynne so far?
No, but I'm not. I don't do it. I don't do
No,
it
I
for.
understand.
I don't
I'm just
try.
saying. He
Yeah,
could
no.
say, "Hey, do you want to be a Wilbury? We're
I'm
getting the band back together. We called Bob."
No, I'm just trying really hard not to totally dork out right now because I'm just a dorky fan, really.
Juliana, you picked the wrong place not to dork out. Let's just put it that way.
No,
This
like
is
no, I'm not the kind of person who would ever go and try like say, "Hey, get this to Jeff Lynne. You got Jeff
No.
Lynne."
You
No,
want
if
it to happen organically.
yeah, like if he stumbles across it and he, has to listen, cool. But I'm also, part of me. Well, I think I'm more concerned about the fans of ELO. I just didn't want to piss them off. I don't want to piss off any fans. And I mean, I will. I'm sure I'll no matter who I cover, I'll probably piss off a few fans, but which is understandable. But I think
I'm-
mostly, like Olivia's fans seem to be mostly really nice about that album I made. And same with Police, I think.
I'm imagining an ELO stan army like Taylor Swift, just going to
That or
town.
Beyonce. Yeah, I don't even want to. Yeah. So because of that reason, the Bayhive, I don't think I could even ever consider covering her or Taylor Swift because the fans are just like those armies are scary.
I don't know.
You know
I don't know
what I mean?
what. I mean, you could just not look at Twitter and then they don't exist.
Well, I don't. Yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
but I was there. I was once on Twitter, so I know they exist.
Yeah.
And I actually had a kind of a little bit of run-in with some Beyonce fans on Twitter when I said I just made this. I'm getting off topic, but
You're good. You're good.
Weird things happen on Twitter, and I said something like, I don't some random comment I made. Like I wrote and recorded this song called "Say My Name" back in like '93 or something, and I said some, and then Destiny's Child had a song called "Say My Name" later. And I made some joke that was like, "Oh, Beyonce stole my title" or something,
Yeah.
say my name. And there were some Beyonce fans who didn't get my joke, or they they were just really like,
Yeah, just no sense of humor. And and it's the funny thing. It's like musician to musician.
I wasn't really accusing them of stealing my song. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, you can't
Um,
copyright. You can't copyright a title anyway. Did you
I,
guys know that? That's how the Replacements were able to name their album "Let It Be." You cannot
I,
copyright the title.
I definitely do know that. Do know that.
Yeah.
This
So
is where we reveal that
Yeah.
David here in his spare time is a trademark attorney. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Really?
yes. So literally, that's one of the few
Yes.
things that I do know is
Okay.
whether a title can be protected on
Right.
intellectual property. So since you mentioned over only everything, I do want to say I was listening to that the other day, and I really honestly feel like if that album came out today, it would be right in the middle of like sort of a, I don't know if trend is the right word I'm looking for, but like there are a lot of records right now that sound like that.
Really?
And I don't know if you're like that's, on your radar, but like many of the bands that like Andy and I have gone and seen in clubs in the last year could that could have been their album or something. So like
Hmm.
whether or not those people are specifically intending to reference the music that created and pioneered,
I
and have
doubt
done
it.
so,
I doubt
or
it.
if it's just a matter of influence filtering through, like each person's situation is probably different, but like I could tick off artists who are like that is the core of their sound right now, and it's a happening thing. So
No,
I don't know if you're aware of that, or if you
I'm
like
not.
if you dig it. I don't know, if
I'm
that's
not
cool to you,
aware.
whatever.
I'm not aware of it, but I like it. I like that you're saying that, and yeah, I've always I feel like I'm kind of like my timing is not right. Something's off about my timing in general. Like the things that I do, they seem to arrive at the wrong time.
Hmm.
Something.
That's
I mean,
interesting. That's interesting, but that's the type of thing that if they each arrive at a different moment, but then all of a sudden you look back and it's like you've got this body of work that is never associated with a moment, and so it ends up being better than if it had coincided with the alignment of things.
Yeah, well, I think you could really argue the other side too is true
Mm.
for me. Like the yeah, I think that the albums that I made in the '90s, they kind of um didn't really fit in anywhere, but that at the same time they were lumped in with this alternative rock movement, that horrible name, alternative rock. So, I mean, some people probably think of me as a '90s relic, I but yeah, you're right. What you said is also true, which is interesting. But I think they're both true.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what your intention is. Obviously, you gotta, feed yourself and all that good stuff. But as an artist, I mean, I don't know, it's things happen, and then if people pick up on something
Oh,
that
yes.
maybe some people overlooked, certainly not
Mhm.
overlooked, certainly not ignored, but wasn't the biggest thing happening at one point. Then that's I mean that's the whole continuum of the whole,
Yeah, I think
the
it's
folk
really
tradition or something.
yeah, and I think it's great that you're hearing that, maybe hearing some of my influence in people today. What was I gonna say? Yeah, even I am having I've been having this experience lately. I just did a short tour and I think I'm finally having a a perspective on my all of my body of work. It's finally like coming clear to me how many, the just the scope of what I've done. I've done a lot. I've made a lot of music and I'm actually feeling very proud for the first time. I think just being able to look back over the whole range of what I've done, and I feel really good about it in a way that I never did before.
That's awesome. We love that. That's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Uh, Andrew, shall we turn to since we're supposed to be a podcast about music documentaries, should we roll into that?
Yeah. So Juliana, we put it to you what movie you'd be interested in, and you selected. I'll uh, spoiler alert here, but what I would consider a very good movie, X, the Unheard Music. What was your relationship to this movie beforehand, and your thought process to talk about it today?
Well, X was one of my favorite bands when I was beginning to make my own music. Um, in high school and college, they were starting in high school. They were one of my probably top 3 bands and just hugely inspiring to me. And I watched that movie when it came out in what, 86, I think. And um I just I loved them so much. It's hard to even talk about it because I almost get emotional about it because they were so inspirational to me. They were just Exene especially was a really good role model for me because she was she was a unique character, and she was so interesting. She kind of was like a sexy witch. She was like a she was, she made and she had this kind of odd, untrained sounding voice, and she didn't when she was on stage singing, she didn't pander to the audience, she was just like being her own weird, scary, beautiful self. And that just inspired me because I didn't really have any kind of templates like that, like her. And before that, I was thinking like a woman singer had to be either like Joan Jett, tough rock chick, or like I don't know, Olivia Newton-John, like um the softer, prettier pop side. But Exene was kind of this. She didn't fit in either category. She was just unique in her, and so yeah. This isn't really talking too much about the music, but you do get there's a lot of great live footage of them, and even her sort of style was so cool. And I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought now.
No. It's
What
all
else can
good.
you say? There's
Well,
also a lot of really interesting you get a lot of you learn a lot about everyone in the band and how distinct their personalities are and how distinct their styles are, and how like you to see each person separately, you would never imagine that these four people would um make a band. Like they would how do these four people fit together in a band? But when they get together and play it just like makes this excellent sound.
Yeah,
now,
there really are lots of like standalone, unique, just like single band member scenes that like if they were just released as a short or something would just be like fascinating little snippets that
Yeah, like
you know.
DJ playing the vibes.
Yes,
Yeah, that's so
exactly.
great. And yeah, there's a whole there's it's not like any other music documentary I know. It's kind of stands apart from other ones.
yeah, I did not expect to see DJ Bonebrake uh playing a Benny Goodman song on the on the vibes.
I know, right? Like who
I was like,
knew?
wow, this is a whole nother thing going on here.
Yeah, and then just what's really a cool little trivia thing for me is um I lived in LA for probably a year. I tried living in LA at one point, and I lived on this little street called Genesee or North Genesee. It was kind of like in Eastern Hollywood, kind of between Fairfax. It was a north-south little street between Fairfax. No, wait, Fairfax is on the other side. Never mind. Anyway, I lived on this. I rented this tiny little house on North Genesee Ave in Hollywood, and then I I came to know John Doe um at one point in my life, and I back in the probably in the late 90s or something. We became friends, and he during our friendship, I came to know through John that he used to live on North Genesee Avenue
Hmm.
with Exene, I think. And it's this really small, short little road. And he told me that he told me which house they lived in, the apartment they lived in, right down the street from me. It was like two buildings down from me, and and there's a shot of it in the doc in X Unheard Music. There's a shot of that house. It's like a little pink stucco building.
Hmm.
And it was like basically right across the street from where I lived, and it's in the movie for a second.
Yeah. So I'm interested now, the like music documentaries in the mid 80s were not a new phenomenon by any stretch of the imagination, but they were also nowhere near as ubiquitous as they are now, where like
Uh-huh.
so many bands have some. Did you ever by any chance talk to him, or do you have any thoughts on sort of how they even entered into the decision to have this made? Like it's not exactly an obvious uh like decision or an obvious opportunity in 1986 to have a a well produced good documentary put together of any band really.
No, it's funny that I don't think I ever asked John Doe about it.
Yeah.
Like what, yeah, how did that happen? How and why? And it's so good. And yeah, like who thought of doing it and how, I don't know anything about the director. And there's just so much great stuff. A lot of the videos, there's the videos, there's all the live stuff, but then there are these like short videos for songs, and all of them are really interesting and entertaining, and every one is different from the others. Like the one of the black and white for because the song "Because I Do." There's this like sort of short film, looks like a black and white kind of silent film with Exene starring in it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so interesting. And then there's the thing about the house, the song, the unheard music, and that this house being moved at night
Mhm.
on a
That
on a
that
vehicle.
whole thing is wild. I
I
mean,
know.
just wild.
I know. Yeah.
It's captivating. It's I don't know how they did it. I mean, it can't be legal to be
Or
to do
was it?
that inside of a moving house, right? That
Or
can't be allowed.
was the house already being moved and they just filmed something that they were seeing happen? I don't know the story of that.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of go back a little bit. I mean, basically, for people who haven't seen the movie, it's it's sort of one of the movies where it's a combination of like, um, live stuff and essentially what we'd call music videos. Although it's not like these are MTV music videos that are just spliced together like you used to get on a VHS back in the day. Um, and then in between each song, and there's a lot of songs, and most of the songs are like pretty much you hear the full song. So there's a lot of music in it, and then in between are these short, little narrative bits where you sort of learn the story of the band through these conversations with the people. So there's no like talking head situation.
Yeah.
There's no like, Henry Rollins saying, and then I saw X, blah, blah, blah. There's not that kind of
Yeah.
thing. There's not like titles. You just kind of like have to go with the flow and learn what,
Organic feeling.
what's that?
Yes.
Kind of organic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I was never like, I, I, I was never like a huge fan of X, but I always liked them and I always checked out the music. And Andy, I don't know how much you ever like were into X or if that's just kind of
I
something.
I listened to Los Angeles when I was like doing my due diligence of working backwards on all the music I'd missed in my life, and always liked it, but I never went deeper than that.
Yeah. Um and the thing about X that I think is cool, but also it's like sometimes I kind of wonder, it's like their theme seems to be like, did you know there's a dark side of Los Angeles? Which, I mean, X is great, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying, like, that is really a trope, right? Like, I feel like we've had more works of art that are like breaking the news that
Yeah.
there's a dark underbelly to Hollywood
It's like Raymond
than
Carver. Yeah.
right
Yeah.
than things that actually say it's no, it's actually good, there is no dark, or whatever. Like, I think that story has gotten out there, but it seems to be like one of these things where it's like a never ending source of artistic inspiration. I mean, there was the movie Babylon from last year, for better or worse. I mean, it does not, that well does not ever seem to run dry in terms of the public's fascination with what's going on
Yeah.
on these streets of Los Angeles at night or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of made their whole aesthetic and career out of it, and it works.
Well, I think that I was more particularly drawn to the energy to Exine's energy and her look and her sound on a more instinctive level. Like I couldn't relate to the lyrics really at all. If I think about it now, like I didn't know anything about sex or drugs or dying, but that there or poverty. I didn't really know about that stuff. But somehow I was like very much connecting to the feeling behind the sound or the just and the sound of John and Exene's voices together. That like for me that I had a very visceral reaction to that. But I hear what you're saying. Definitely.
The sound of their voices together is, I mean, I'm sure somebody with a more encyclopedic knowledge of music than I would be able to come up with something, but like I can't think of any two people who sing like them. It's like
No,
these.
it's a bizarre kind of a bizarre combination if you step outside of it and think about it. Because John's a crooner, and Exene is not. She's something else. She's like a wild animal. And the way when they sing together, you can hear sometimes their voices come together in a kind of a unison, and then Exene and John's doing a kind of traditional melody thing, and then Exene will veer off to some really odd place and an odd interval with compared to John, and then they'll come back into unison. It's just like it's really interesting, I think, and it
Yeah.
seems it seems very instinctive when they're doing it. Like they didn't. It's just sort of happening on its own.
Yeah, it's like the times at which one or the other voice chooses to come in or out, it's
Mhm.
like the song is written and then somehow they know, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like exactly when he's supposed to be singing, she's supposed to be singing, they're supposed to be singing together. It's not a conventional linear kind of structure at all.
no,
And
and
yeah,
I can
it's great.
imagine that it rubs some people the wrong way, the sounds of that, but and I can't explain why I loved and still love it so much, but it's just one of those things that, sometimes a band just really grabs onto you and you can't help it. It's just a very early love of mine that endures.
One thing that the movie makes clear is you've got Exene who is um I think it's fair to say her presentation is, somewhat subverting accepted norms of gender, at least at the time.
Mhm.
Meaning, she's not showing a lot of skin. She's not going for a obviously sexy rock chick type of look. I mean, that she was just going for something different. And,
Right.
that's great. And then you've got three guys who are going real sexy. I mean, you know what I mean? Like they're going for that. Like all three of them are in their own way, going for a rock star look in the punk context. I mean, that's what I picked up on. And I don't know of another band that presents that way. And it's just such a flip of what, because so many bands are a woman that have a woman are like the three out of focus guys in the background, right? But they're all flexing for the spotlight. It's really just it must have been incredible to see like live that energy.
So funny. I never really thought about that, but I guess you're kind of right. Yeah, it's like three beefcakey guys and then this witch. I love this show. There's some scenes of a show where in which Exene's wearing an apron over her dress or something. I think that's like a really uh great look. The symbol, like the apron. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you ever see them?
Oh yeah. I mean, yes, a bunch of times back in saw them in the 80s when I was in high school, at least a couple of times. And I remember one show, saw them in Boston, some theater, and had this weird experience. And I think that it was so loud, or the bass was so loud that I couldn't swallow. And I was like, "What's going on?" Like the music was having some music through the
Physical
speakers.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah, it was having some weird effect on me biologically, and I was like, "This is awesome." Just made them all that more great to me.
David, they're coming to San Diego
They're
really
still
soon.
great, I mean, it sounds like you
Yeah.
guys are not the biggest X fans, but they're still really great. They
Yeah.
sound as good as ever. The last time I saw them was probably like 4 years ago in a small club in Boston. They were really good.
Yeah. I would love to see them this next month when they're here. I'm going to be out of town. They're opening for Adrian Belew and Jerry Harrison.
Oh, that's right. They're
Wow.
doing the Remaining Light show,
Yeah.
which is
Interesting.
so. I mean, imagine in 1980,
Yeah,
whatever, two,
right. Yeah.
like X opening for the Talking Heads Like,
Yeah.
right? That like that. I don't think that anybody was pitching that. You know what I mean?
And so
Maybe.
what get going sorry, I'm having another thought when you said the 80s, but going back to your um idea that Exene's lectures subverting traditional femininity. When I saw them in Boston at that theater, she was wearing a potato sack as a dress. Well, it was a dress. It was actually made. It was, I don't know if it was an actual potato sack, but it was a potato sack made into a dress. Basically, it was really great.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
all these years later, you're not gonna forget that kind of thing.
I'm
Yeah.
not. No, like she was really inspirational to me, and she was like a kind of like a feminist icon in a way. Although I wasn't thinking of that, and I didn't really have those terms in my head at that point.
Yeah, which is why it resonated. You know, like if you were like, there's plenty of time for like intellectual discourse, but the stuff that sticks with you is more visceral.
The
Yeah.
witch in the potato sack and the
The
three
witch in the
beefcake
potato
guys.
sack, right?
Come on.
Right. Yeah.
Smart. It was a smart woman who was not being coy about it. You know, she
Mhm.
was like doing this thing that she did, and she wasn't messing around about it.
So
I
yeah,
also,
go
well,
ahead,
so
Andy.
just in terms of other like vignettes, because a lot of the movie in a lot of ways is kind of like a series of vignettes, really. And
Yeah, but there. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but
oh, it's fine.
there also this theme running through it, I think, or this theme that comes into it about how X, you know, the major label system
Yeah,
didn't really know what to do with them, and did they ever, you know, they never really were as successful as some people thought they could have been. And you know, I think the interviews with the record label people are so funny. Like there's one guy, they're all wearing like ties and
yeah,
suits, and the one guy's saying like, we just didn't really think that X could reach the mainstream. They didn't really we didn't think they really had that kind of appeal, but we really believe that our band point blank is gonna be really,
yeah,
we've got the whole system set up, they're gonna be huge, point blank.
yeah. Well, you know,
And then
frankly,
then it cuts into the famous Edsel commercial from
Oh yeah,
Ford, where it's like, yeah, because I mean, I'm sure the folks from Point Blank are nice folks, but I have really never heard of that band, and
none
they
of us have
certainly
ever
did not make as much of an impression in the world as X.
no,
exactly.
yeah, and so that whole segment really does stand out. I mean, so David and I did an episode a couple months ago, I guess at this point, about the Dixie Chicks documentary, Shut Up and Sing.
Right.
And that movie has a unique moment where there's actually cameras present among the executives when their tour after the George Bush controversy goes on sale. And you
Right.
actually get to see their like real-time reactions to the ticket sales coming in and being underwhelming.
Uh-huh.
And we talked a lot about in that episode about, you know, how rare it is to actually get a window into these sorts of you know, business of music discussions. And I think this movie is like sort of on par there, where you, like they were a small enough band and it was early enough at the time that the executives were like speaking frankly, you know, that they weren't like, that guy should be embarrassed about
Right.
what he was saying about, you know, but he doesn't know to be embarrassed about it. If you make this movie in 1995, he's
But you
declining
would
that interview, you know?
right, you would not hear a record company executives speaking so freely now, or you know, it seems almost innocent in a way,
Yeah.
the way that they're talking.
Yeah. So that part is really awesome. It's really interesting. And you get a window in there. And the surprise hero of that section, and also, you know, a real surprise for this show, that making his first Rock Docs appearance is Joe Smith of the fame of the Long Strange Trip, the guy who signs the Grateful Dead to Warner Brothers in his second life in the
Oh
music
right.
industry. Signs
Uh-huh.
X. Yeah. And he's the
But
guy who sensibly says, obviously they sound great and we're gonna make great records and they're gonna have a long life. You know?
Well,
right.
he's the one who says like, well, we can see X playing on the radio alongside Fleetwood Mac and you know, who else did he say? The Rolling Stones, like the Police, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I do think maybe I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard to, I don't know. It's hard to recontextualize.
Well, it's that type of thing where it's like, even if you're wrong about that, and I guess that that specifically didn't really happen, but you you exercise a bit of good taste to sign a good
Yeah.
band, and even if you're wrong about that
You still look
goal,
cool. For signing
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Oh,
you're
sure.
still,
Because
yeah,
I
it
think,
pays you off down the line, right?
yeah, and I think it could have happened. It just, they could
Yeah.
have had some big, like Lou Reed, Walk on the Wild Side. Whoever knew that would happen, but
Right, right.
so, just something. I mean, they were, yeah, they were. They could have. It could have happened.
Right, right.
You never know. You never know. That's the thing. Like, oh, isn't there a scene and someone talking about the Ramones? I can't remember. Maybe that's something else that I've said. Sorry.
I don't recall a Ramones, but
I
there might be. There's a This
Um,
movie is
someone
there's
talking
a
about
lot in there. Yeah. You know?
I
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know that I have a handle on how big X was, because I grew up here in San Diego and we had, as we mentioned, 91X. And so that was kind of always on. It wasn't like I was, some hip 6-year-old or something listening to that, but it was like it was around. And so, and they're a band from LA. And I guess I got the sense that, like, you know, even 91X was really not going to be spending a lot of time playing like the Circle Jerks. But, you know, the song Los Angeles was popular enough and, you know, acceptable enough, that it, an independent, edgy commercial radio station could play it. So like that song was on all the time.
And
So
that song's pretty that album's pretty edgy, like,
yeah.
and then
Sure.
I think they started to get a little more accessible sounding in terms of like melody and sonics, like with my two favorite X albums are Under the Big Black Sun and then More Fun in the New World. And I really think when I was in high school, there was a station called WBCN in Boston, and they were kind of the rock station, not even like alternative. They're just the cool rock station with a lot of really cool DJs, and they were playing a lot of the song "I Must Not Think Bad Thoughts," kind of heavy rotation, and so that to me was like sounded great on the radio. It wasn't as punk as the earlier stuff. It was just like radio ready, I thought. But I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you guys. I
No,
interrupted you.
that's what we're here for. Please. People are sick of hearing
Can you
this
say
anyway.
more about that, about 91X?
No, I'm just wondering, like, so that tells me that X was not just one, because there's some bands that like I thought were huge. Like
Yeah.
Oingo Boingo was like, they may as well have been the Police in San Diego in 1985, and like it seems like hardly anybody outside of Southern California ever heard of them. And there's a few other, now everything's filtered out, right? But even like the Chili Peppers and stuff, they were like big here before, because it's like local band and things were still more local and regional then. So I didn't really have a sense, but from, if they were getting radio play of some level in Boston, then that tells me like, okay, they weren't a band that like kind of flopped, except they had a little bit of a local thing going on, but they were in fact bigger than that.
But but it is true. I don't really have a sense of how big they were, because they seemed like they were very important to certain sections of the world or the United States. They seem to have had a really big effect in somehow, but then a lot of people also have never heard of them. So I'd be interested to know how many records they sold, although that doesn't really always explain the impact a band has overall. I mean, sales can kind of not tell the whole story. But I mean, part of the point of the movie was to sort of illustrate how they never really hit it big.
Yeah.
But 86, they were still in it, so they were.
Yeah,
the movie isn't telling the whole story of X.
Sure.
Right.
Now, another major character in the X story is, of course, Ray Manzarek from The Doors, who produced their first 4 albums. And you get him in this talking about them, and you get him doing just a great performance live doing Soul Kitchen with them, which I love that cover.
So
Yeah.
hold on. I got to say this about Manzarek. I don't know if anybody was aware of this, but when he explains the first time he heard their lyrics when he goes to their show,
Right.
and he says,
Johnny Hit and Run Pauline.
yes, Johnny Hit and Run Pauline, and he says his exact words were, "Now these are some good lyrics," which is exactly what Manzarek says to Val Kilmer on the beach in the movie Doors when Morrison first reads him his first song. It is an exact quote. It is an exact quote from what he says in the movie Doors.
Wow. I didn't clock that.
When he said, yeah, I had the same kind of like, I reacted to that when he says that. Whenever Ray Manzarek says that line, I always feel like, wait, what? It just doesn't seem to explain anything for me.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, Oliver Stone made that movie a few years later. It seems like not impossible that he saw this movie and wrote.
But Ray Manzarek took it from the movie, and he needed a line about X
right. So
for the press.
He's really Kyle MacLachlan in that movie is really talking about X. If you're understanding this
Right.
deep reading of the film.
So the performance, Ray Manzarek singing with them at the Whiskey a Go-Go, that makes me think that about the storyline. There's a storyline in this movie about the impending closure of Whiskey a Go-Go, and this is
Right.
like they're talking about how, you know, these are the last legs, they're closing Whiskey, and it was like 82 or something. But the Whiskey a Go-Go, did it ever close, or did it just reopen? Was it new management or something? Because it's never went away.
It reopened under new management. It's still it's still there. Yeah.
Because I always remember playing the Whiskey when I started playing. The Whiskey was always there.
Right.
Yeah.
The sense I get is that it's kind of sucked for like the last 25 years. Because I remember.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, it was a pay to play place when I was playing in bands in LA, like in the early 2000s. So like,
so the cool Whiskey ended. That's what they're talking about in the movie.
Right.
Okay.
But it could also be like, it's like the Che Cafe here in San Diego that has, like, in the 15 years I've lived here, had like 8 Save the Che Cafe movements. You know, like, it's kind of always on its last legs.
Right.
But I want to get back to I don't want to lose the thread with Ray because he's so great, and his like you know, middle-aged dad energy he's bringing to bopping around with them on stage is so charming. Yeah, he's wearing khakis. He's like, he looks like he's, you know, like a computer salesman or something. It's beautiful. And and I was just doing the math, and it's like, well, like when I first learned that Ray Manzarek produced these albums, you know, when I was learning about X, this was, you know, maybe in the 90s or whatever, I was like, that's crazy. Like, that's like some ancient rock dude. But like, he was in the Doors with Jim Morrison like 8 years before this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not
35 in this documentary or something.
right. And it's like, imagine somebody who was in a popular band 8 years ago doing something now. Like, you wouldn't think of that as being weird. It's like that's a Jack White is still around, you know, or whatever.
Ezra Koenig likes a young band. You're like, huh.
It's not. But in those days, like, it just seemed like the distance in time between the Doors and X was like, even, you know, the dinosaurs came and went.
Well, even just the story they're telling, in this movie, like that in 1986, they're telling the story of X that had formed like 4 years. You know, it's like everything's accelerated, you know?
It's great.
And I think Billy Zoom might even be Ray Manzarek's age. I have this feeling that Billy Zoom might be a few years older than the other people in the band. I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
It could be. We can check that. But and also I actually didn't realize this till today, but Ray Manzarek also played keys on the Echo and the Bunnymen cover of People Are Strange. So like, he had a little thing going on in the 80s of being the guy from the Doors that you cover up if you were like an alt rock indie rock band or whatever. And you know what I mean? Like, what a weird kind of little
second career,
second career. Yeah. Boy, he really, they're great covers. They pulled it off. He brought the flavor.
I mean, also like those are great records by X that he produced. You know, that's like
Sure.
in terms of a second life in rock and roll, that's a pretty great one.
No,
And
and didn't he seem like such a random choice for a
yeah,
producer for them? And that
yeah,
that just made them seem all that more, like, interesting to me, that
yeah,
he
because you would assume that the young punk kids in the 80s would have thought of that as their dad's music and have no interest in it, right?
yeah. But I think the Ray Manzarek angle, that kind of, like, somehow gave X maybe more legitimacy or something, or it made people see them in a new light, like, see them as actual players, and we see in this
Mhm.
documentary, you see how great of a player Billy is. We see some scenes with him just playing alone and with DJ, and the vibes, and individually we see the guys, like, how really talented they are in kind of traditional musical ways, right? And
Yeah.
Ray Manzarek is maybe part of that, like, continuum of more traditional musical chops or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
I kind of have a weird thing about like the early wave of LA punks and their relationship to classic rock because like it seems like there was such a break, but then like you've got Black Flag famously being deadheads,
Right.
or at least Greg
Right.
Ginn. You've got the Minutemen famously they were covering, bands like Van Halen and stuff and Credence. And so there is a continuity there, even though like it was marketed as like get rid of that old stuff.
Okay.
Here's the
Yeah,
new.
Yeah. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and with X, I feel like there always was a kind of, a bit of whatever you call it, Americana in it somewhere. Um,
Y-
but it was like underneath it all.
Yeah, which is why I think it's not crazy when you hear Just Smith say, I think we could play this on the radio next to Fleetwood Mac. It's
Right.
like it doesn't feel a million miles away from that, right?
Right. I mean, one of the best scenes in the movie that I love is just John Doe and Exene together in an apartment, like John strumming an acoustic guitar, and they're like going through a songbook of Hank Williams songs, and they're
Yeah,
singing
right.
what are they singing? Lost Highway. I'm trying to remember what they you know, I'm a Rolling Stone, whatever that one is. Ramblin' Man, Honky Tonk Blues. Yeah, they're just like, do you know this one? And it really works. And then later that kind of became John Doe's thing when he went solo.
They did the
Was that
Knitters also, the Knitters album.
yeah, oh yeah, the Knitters,
Both
exactly.
folky, acoustic.
Yeah, but that was all you can hear that that's always kind of there.
Yeah,
Um, and I love that scene. It's just really it's just like two young people like that are just feeling themselves artistically and having a good time and messing around with this great music. And then they're talking about Loretta Lynn, Hank Williams, Percy Mayfield, Fats Domino, um seeing themselves as part of that continuity is
yeah,
is really cool. They weren't trying to be, again, like we're burning it all down. We're, everything before us sucks. That was not their thing. Even though if you like just caught their image or listened to their music for a minute, you might think that that was where they're coming from.
and John and Exene met at a poetry workshop, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
like it's a nice little origin story for them. It's not very punk, really.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is. Poetry workshop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Very cool.
Let's see. I mean, there's a lot of great little bits in the movie, that they, they
Yeah. I
the
mean,
whole thing about the
walking.
X-Lax building sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That stuff's great. And he gets the sign. The walk through of the like burned out, trashed club where they had played their early shows, and then you get the revisit from the club owner who lists the people responsible for the club closing. He like starts at the president or something. um,
Yeah, Brendan Mullen. Yeah, he's
yeah,
great. He's
Brendan
dressed
Mullen.
like Gandalf or something.
Yes, yes,
It's fabulous.
And it's like some good LA history
right.
in there.
Yeah, you could imagine this getting the review that's like LA is really a character in this movie, like the
Yeah. I just did that.
It's true though. I mean, it's true. Like it
Works.
is. Yeah. I mean, it's
Did
like,
you know that there's a dark underside, Ellen?
yeah, exactly. Um,
Oh, come on. There's more to them than that.
I know.
I mean, the early stuff, yeah. Left
No,
is the name of the album.
I mean, it's fine. It's like saying like
Yeah.
a song about two people falling in love. Like that's, you know what I mean? It's a perfectly fine piece of content to work with to fashion in your own image. And they make, I mean, it works. And look, the Doors did the same thing. I mean, you know, again, it's part of that whole continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
All
like
right.
the studio recording of White Girl that when they first get in the studio there is fantastic. Sounds so good.
Yeah.
It's killer. Julian, so how you mentioned that you saw this movie when it first came out, but like what were the circumstances? Did it play in a theater? Was this like a radio
You know what?
rental situation?
I might have lied. I might not have seen it right when it came out. Because I don't remember seeing it in theater. I might have. I don't have any memory of the first time I saw it, where or how. But I was such a humongous fan that if it was in a theater, I would have gone. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was some kind of event like an opening in Boston, the movie it's playing. I don't know. Some indie theater. I don't remember.
Yeah, I would be fascinated to know how a movie like this gets distributed at the time.
Me too.
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it ever got play on like MTV. I'm sure it was like in the hip video stores music section.
The
You
the
know,
dir-
Yeah,
so
but I don't. Mhm.
the director got another movie after this, so it was sort of well received enough that 20th Century Studios allowed him to direct A Matter of Degrees in 1990, which looks like it was basically like a kicking and screaming reality bites type, like kids are graduating college and they don't know what to do with their life type deal.
Sounds
Um,
familiar. Who's in it?
doesn't
Did I
ring a
see
bell,
that?
but
Sounds familiar.
maybe that was a little early for that wave.
Yeah, I think it was
yeah,
an indie kind of thing. Indie film.
Zaza Dupree, Tom Sizemore was in it. Interesting.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Wendell Pierce. Hell yeah, Wendell Pierce
Hmm.
was.
Wow, amazing. Okay. So unless we want to pivot and talk about that film.
Well, one
um
two other cleaning up things. One, Jello Biafra makes his second, I believe, Rock Docs appearance.
what was his first one? Was it it was in
A
the
band called Death, right?
oh right, yeah. Well, I don't think he was in the SST one we saw. But
I don't
yeah,
think so,
he was
but he
yeah, love Jello Biafra. Great. Rodney
and
Bingenheimer.
Rodney Bingenheimer's in there.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think we've had Rodney on appear in any of our films
Uh,
yet. So
no.
we're keeping track of these things, which for no good reason, but it's we're doing this all the time. So
but then also I just wanted that struck me. Exene says at one point, like going on tour is the only real way to get mass exposure because radio and TV either likes you or it doesn't. But when you go out on tour, you can really connect.
Right.
And like I think I hear like young artists who are just breaking right now say that all the time. Like that's like they're talking about Spotify and algorithms
Right.
instead of radio, but it's basically the same sentiment.
Yeah, and they were always very Exene's always been really smart. Like she comes across really. I think she comes across really well in this movie. Like very smart, very sober, or just sensible. She seems really sensible to me, even though her
Yeah.
stage her demeanor on stage can be a little odd and
Well, the whole thing about her sister, that vignette is
oh
very
yeah,
affecting. It's very sweet, and at first she says, "This window broke the day my sister died," and it's like it's very flat, like she just says it, and it's like, whoa, that is
Mom punched it when they found out her sister died on the way to the gig. She was
yeah, yeah. And then she goes and explains the whole thing, and then says, I saw that the glass is still here, so I guess there's a little bit of my sister here. It's like,
yeah,
wow, that was very
maybe,
very poetic thing
yeah,
she's like she thinks in the way her lyrics are written.
yeah, kind of unsentimental, but also very moving.
Yes, yes.
yeah, the other thing that I was expecting to get more of in the movie that we didn't get was they mentioned a little bit in the beginning about like, they played at the Mask with the Go-Go's and the Alley Cats, but there's not a lot of talk of their contemporaries, like whether
Right.
that is somebody like the Blasters or even Los Lobos or the Black Flags of the world.
Black
Like they're
Flag and
just not
Minutemen, yeah.
they're just not brought up like as being part of the
Yes.
scene
Isn't there
that
a scene
much.
when there's a scene when Exene's listing all these bands, isn't there?
Right.
Yeah.
They talk about how they played the Mask in Chinatown. Um, and there was the famous Chinatown riots and all that stuff. But other than that, it's not, they're just telling their own story. It's not like told as part of a scene. It's just their
Right.
own, they're just off in their own world. And maybe that's kind of how they thought of it. Now we can lump them into a scene or, whatever, but that's for, music critics and podcasters and whatever. Like for them, they were just doing their thing.
There's
Well,
definitely no way if somebody's making this movie today that they don't attempt to, rightly or wrongly, that they don't attempt to situate them in what's happening in music in Southern California in the early 80s, right? And I think this is a good example of it's better for it to not do that. That stuff is so pat as part of the like the Wikipedia style rock documentary,
kind of maybe more powerful this way because it's focusing on this really, in my opinion, really interesting band and who stand apart. I think they really stand apart from all the other bands in that scene with their with their sound and what they're doing. And yeah, it doesn't really. I mean, they talk about. I think Exene talked about some of the bands, but they don't need it. It doesn't need that context. I think it stands alone. Really, it works on its own,
Mm-hmm.
on their own.
All right. Well, I think we kind of kicked this one around and I think it's clear we all really like this movie. I should say that I caught it on YouTube, which can be a little dodgy and maybe not the best, way to see it, but it's on X's official YouTube channel. So it's not like some low budge bootleg. Like they're putting it out there. So for people that haven't seen it or want to check it out again, that is a place where it can be found. I'm sure there's other places as well.
I
But
own the DVD.
Oh,
Actually,
nice.
or
Are
just
there
hit
any
up Juliana and see if you can borrow the DVD.
Yeah.
I think it's a good movie that, in my opinion, it really holds up. Like it's entertaining more than once.
Yes, I would suspect that it has high. I mean, I only watched it for the first time for this episode, but I would expect it to have high rewatchable value.
Well said. Juliana, anything else you want to say about X or the film or anything else? This is your moment to shine the light on X.
I love X. I always did, always will.
X forever. Yeah, we love this movie. It was great. Thank you so much for joining us and for recommending this film. Of course, everybody, please check out Juliana Hatfield Sings ELO. And
Julian, what's the best place for people to listen to your music for you to actually make money off of it?
Oh, well, I would say go to the record company website, American Laundromat Records. They have the choices, the best way. They can direct people. American Laundromat Records.
Yeah, we'll put a link. And I feel like I read or heard that you are working on another album of your own compositions. If that's not correct, then tell me I'm wrong.
I am doing that. Yes, I'm working on that. Slowly but surely. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll eagerly look forward to that as well as the REM covers albums parts 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Which are definitely coming.
Getting ready for the Guided by Voices volumes 1 through 25.
God, I only wish.
Quadruple album to start.
This is good. Andy made it through a whole podcast without asking about fish, so I feel like we've done it. So,
Yeah.
Julian,
I really want to thank you guys for accommodating me not being there the other night and for being late tonight and not on the
it's totally fine.
The platform of your choice. So thank you.
It's all good. Thank you so much. Thank you for the music. Thank you for the recommendation, and thank you for listening to Rock Docs, people.
Thank you, guys.
And that was pretty much what it's about.